What's up everyone, how's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well, and what you're looking at is the Logitech G513 mechanical gaming keyboard. Now if you remember back in 2016, we covered the G810 Orion mechanical keyboard from Logitech, and even though for the most part the G513 looks very similar to the 810, there's some slight differences. Now in terms of the design itself, what's really popular right now with mechanical keyboards is typically a very minimalistic design, not a lot of fluff, extra macro buttons or anything like that. Most gamers out there want something simple and easy to use, and this is what the 513 definitely delivers, almost to a fault in my opinion. If you take a look at the G810, I really like how it's super simple, clean overall layout, but it still gave you your basic media controls, a nice large volume dial, as well as some things to mute and unmute your microphone, which was super handy. If you take a look at the 513, you can see that most of those controls are gone. They're built into the function buttons in the keyboard itself, but it would have been nice to have some of those media dedicated buttons, especially when it comes to volume. I'm kind of a habit to have some sort of volume dial on my keyboard, so that's unfortunate based on my personal preference. In terms of build quality, the new keyboard is using 5052 aluminum / magnesium alloy construction, so it should be pretty durable and should take a beating throughout the years. In terms of comfort, it's super comfortable to use, especially with the separate included palm rest that's made of this leatherette material with memory foam built inside, so it's very comfortable and it's going to adapt to any kind of typing style. You also get a replacement set for the QWERASD keys as well as numbers 1 through 5. These keys also give you a little bit more grip as well as deeper grooves in order to make the keyboard a little bit more performance oriented. Now beyond those factors, what we really want to talk about is the new Rgb switches that Logitech has now introduced with this series of keyboards. Firstly, I just want to go over the three type of popular mechanical switches that are out there. You typically have a tactile key, a linear key, and a clicky key. Right now, Rgb is being offered with a tactile and linear key. In order to physically tell the difference between the two switches, you can see that the tactile key is colored in white and the linear key is in dark gray. Now taking a look at the tactile key, this is actually the original Rgb switch. It actually is very similar to a Cherry MX Brown. If you take a look at a force chart, you can see that there's typically a bump or tactile point just before the operation point of the key switch. So you're going to need a little bit more force to go through the threshold to initiate the keystroke. This is great for any kind of rapid fire competitive gaming application, so it's really ideal for people that play a lot of first-person shooters. And Rgb as a whole is actually a fairly quiet switch. In fact, there's not a huge distinction between the noise level coming from the tactile to the linear. Now the linear is the new Rgb switch. It has a very fluid and smooth force curve. You can progressively initiate any kind of keystroke and you'll see that the force curve is very smooth and direct, and there's no feedback bump that the mechanical switch inherently has. This switch with its characteristic is very similar to something like a Cherry MX Red. Now, if we were to quickly do a side-by-side comparison between the Rgb switches and their Cherry MX counterparts, you can see that the actuation distance or distance traveled to initiate a keystroke is shorter on the Rgb switches at 1.5 millimeters versus 2 millimeters on the Cherry MX side. And in terms of total force production, you're going to need about 45 grams on both the Rgb and the Cherry MX, which is great for a lot of people that are very used to the Cherry MX since it's such a established kind of standard out there for mechanical switches. It's not going to feel really awkward coming from one switch to the other in terms of how much force you need to actually initiate a keystroke. In terms of the tactile force, there is a little bit difference on the Rgb tactile versus something like a Brown. You're going to need about 50 grams of force versus 55 grams on the Cherry MX side. And lastly, you can see that the total distance for the key travel is a little bit longer on the Cherry MX switches, typically around 4 millimeters versus 3.2 millimeters on the Rgb side. Now, one thing that's definitely missing from the Rgb switches is a clicky switch. Obviously, Cherry MX has blues and greens and even whites that offer that very nice clicky sensation, and I personally have becoming a really big fan of it over the years. I really like something that has that really direct mechanical feel and a nice satisfying click. Obviously, this is going to differ from person person to person, but hopefully Logitech will come out with a Roamer G clicky, fingers crossed. That way we can do a comparison between something like a Cherry MX Blue and that kind of switch. Now, there's been some criticism in terms of the Roamer G switches feeling a little bit mushy and really void of that direct mechanical feel that you get from a Cherry MX switch. I don't think that's really the case. They do definitely feel very different from a Cherry MX switch, and some people that are huge fans of those switches probably may not like the overall feel of this. It definitely gets a little bit of time to kind of get used to it, but it's not like a glorified rubber dome switch that some people have claimed in the past. So definitely stay tuned. Hopefully we'll find something a little bit more clicky in the future. One advantage I think that the Roamer G switch has opposed to the Cherry is definitely its design for RGB lighting integration. It's built right inside the switch, since Logitech was designing this around the whole RGB lighting system and illuminated keys themselves, versus Cherry MX is kind of an afterthought of putting just an LED underneath the mechanical switch. So in terms of the illumination, in terms of evenness of brightening and the overall effects that you can get with the RGB lighting system on the G513 is pretty amazing. We're huge fans of RGB, even though people think it's kind of gimmicky. I still think it's a next level of customization that a lot of people find some value into. But other than that, really guys, that's really it. Definitely love to hear your thoughts about the G513. What do you guys prefer right now in terms of a mechanical switch? Would you like something more tactile, linear, or clicky? Love to hear your opinions down below. But other than that, thanks again for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and we'll see you real soon.